WPSC-FM 88.7, Wayne, New Jersey.
Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network. Brave New Radio.
Brave New Radio. Give us your tired, your poor, your hungry, your rockers, your punks, your freaks, your geeks, your Greeks, your party animals, your gangsters, your commuters, your residents, your students, your alums, your lawyers, your truckers, your calls, your tweets. And we'll give you rock, classic, indie, punk, alternative, easy, hard, raps, rhymes, mixes, and drops. We'll give you kick-ass music because we're WPSC 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio. Sound good?
The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the host and guest and are not necessarily supported by WPSC 88.7 FM, station management, or the station owner, William Patterson University. Anyone wanting to offer differing opinions may do so by calling the show at 973-720-2738. Abusive callers will be rejected. Now here's your program on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Well, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. And yes, it is indeed a good morning if we are still alive and we're still breathing and we still can feel, even though it's 9.5 degrees up here where I am. It is a great morning. So if you can hear my voice, as froggy and scratchy as it may sound, you're listening to another edition of The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. And we come to you live each Saturday morning at this hour, where we bring you the best of what's going on in the literary world and a little bit of more of everything else, because lately, most of my guests have been Renaissance people. So not only are they authors, but they're multifaceted. And I have that again this morning. My guest is already on the line. He's on the air. I'm going to get him introduced momentarily. However, if you've been listening to the show any amount of time, you know there's a ritual and a routine. There's an order to the show where I kick off and let you know what's going on with the weather, and then I read from two selections, introduce my guest, and we will be underway with our interview. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and do that right now. As I just said, in my area, in the Wayne, New Jersey area, it's 9.5 degrees. We're expected to go up to a high of 37, moving back to a low of 24. We can expect sunny, partly cloudy today. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, as I said, moving to a low of 24. And then on Sunday, partly cloudy, high of 43 with a low of 24. It's going to be partly cloudy during the day, clear skies Sunday night. Monday, mainly sunny, high of 44, moving to a low of 26, and is going to remain clear as well. On Tuesday, some rain showers in the morning that will evolve into a more steady rain in the afternoon, high of 43. It looks like we're going to have a low of 33. Showers in the evening, then partly cloudy overnight. Both day and evening, 70% chance of precipitation. And then rounding out the forecast on Wednesday, partly cloudy, high of 49, low of 26. That's the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. Well, you know, I read from two books as we kick the show off. That does a few things. One, it just kind of sets a positive tone, a positive flow. It also gets my voice up and going. Even this morning, I don't know if it's going to get up too much more than that. There's something going around up here that's getting into all of our throats. And I don't know if it's just the cold weather or what, or just having to use the voice so much. But either way, it is have our voice sounding the way it sounds. So I'm going to go ahead and warm that up with the reading of these two books. I'm going to actually switch books this morning. I'm actually going to change over one. I'm going to keep until today, and I'm going to change over one that's called Blessings, Powerful Affirmations, or Money Blessings, Powerful Affirmations for Attracting Prosperity. I'm going to read from that. It's an affirmation book. It says, blessings flow to me abundantly and frequently from every direction. You do not have to wait for another lifetime to be blessed. Are you visualizing scarce blessings or abundant blessings? Call forth the divine presence of abundance even in the midst of appearances. You can only achieve what your mind can conceive. Imagine abundant blessings flowing to you from expected and unexpected places. Affirm. Blessings flow to me abundantly and frequently from every direction. I am open and receptive to divine blessings. I deserve to be blessed. I am confident that I can achieve anything my mind can conceive. I see my blessings coming to me from all directions, and I receive them with gratitude. Your eyes will shine and your heart will thrill with joy, for merchants from around the world will come to you. They will bring you the wealth of many lands. Isaiah 60:5. That's from the book Money Blessings, Powerful Affirmations for Attracting Prosperity. From the book Until Today by Ian Van Zant for March what's today? The 7th or the 8th? Yeah, for March the 7th. You know, these days go by so quickly. For today, March the 7th, Iyanla says, I open my heart and mind to be aware God can only do for me what God can do through me. God cannot help you unless you allow God to help you. Many of us could be accused of trying to out-God God. We think we know more than God. We think we can do more than God. We actually believe that what we want and how we want it is better than the way God can bring it to us. In fact, we get so busy doing what we do the way we do it, there is no opportunity for God to get into our lives at all. God is so merciful. God will not fight you. If God did, you would get beat up badly. Most of us could use a divine butt whipping. Instead, God sits back and waits to be invited into your life. God will let you do whatever you want to do until you realize that God can do it better. If you want to run the show, God will let you. If you want to pull all the strings, that's up to you. If you want to insist that what you are doing is the way it should be done, even when you are not getting anywhere, go right ahead. God will let you run yourself ragged if you choose to do so. Unfortunately, you may not always be aware that you are in God's way. You think you are demonstrating your independence. You think that it is all up to you and that you must do it or it won't get done. God knows better. God knows that God cannot fail. However, God has no need to prove to you what God can do. How do you know when you are in God's way? How do you know when you are running your program rather than allowing God's divine plan to unfold? It's very simple. If you are struggling to make things happen and they are not happening, it's you, not God, running the show. Until today, you have been directing your own life and attempting to produce your own blessings. Just for today, ask for direction. Open yourself to guidance. Give up your attachments to having things your way. Open yourself to God's way. Today I am devoted to allowing God to work through me and for me. And that's for March the 7th out of the book Until Today by Iyanla Van Zant. All right, we are up and running. As I said, the voice is probably about where it's going to get to. And that's going to be interesting because when I leave here, I'm the master of ceremonies at a breakfast this morning, a scholarship breakfast hosted by the Patterson chapter of the NAACP. So it's going to be real interesting getting through the morning. But nonetheless, we shall prevail. My guest this morning is on the air. He is waiting in the wings, and I'm going to introduce him now. He is Kevin D. Carr. He's the CEO and principal of PRO2CEO. Kevin Carr is a 20-year sports business and professional development executive. As an acclaimed award-winning transition expert, author, leadership coach, and keynote speaker, Kevin is the founder, CEO, and principal of PRO2CEO, LLC. Kevin believed a high-performing professional development firm specializing in transition management for professionals in the sports, entertainment, and business needed to exist. PRO2CEO is a career transition and business development consulting firm for elite current and former athletes, artists, and organizations who seek to increase their optimization and monetization in the business world. Most recently, Kevin served 13 seasons, 2001-2014, as Vice President of Social Responsibility and Player Programs for the National Basketball Association and NBA Development League. In that role, Kevin was one of 5 people in the world to provide transition, career, and life coaching to NBA and NBA D-League players. He was part of the player development staff that changed the NBA dress code. All right now. He led social responsibility efforts for NBA D-League cares and assisted in the execution of a premier NBA player development initiatives for 6 NBA and 18 NBA D-League teams. His illustrious background includes a position as Associate Director of Student Athlete Support and Director of Life Skills at Michigan State University, where under his leadership, MSU's Life Skills program was awarded the Distinguished Division 1A Athletic Directors 2000 Program of Excellence Award. Prior to MSU, Carr was responsible for piloting the first Life Skills program at Florida State University and was part of the Florida State University staff, acknowledged for their accomplishments with the Award of Excellence, all right, for the Academic Support Program for Student Athletes for College Athletic Management in 1996. He has also been honored with 4 championship rings in collegiate football, basketball, and ice hockey for his role in providing outstanding leadership to players, coaches, and staff. Revered for his work in the field of human development, Carr's expertise has made him an asset in talent development for numerous Fortune 500 companies, including the one I used to work for, AT&T, IBM, Siemens, the Orlando Magic, and the Walt Disney World Company. A business leadership coach, Mr. Carr is a certified licensed facilitator of Franklin Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People and the 4 Roles of Leadership, and holds a certification of business communication skills and professional self-development and management from Michigan State's University College of Communication Arts and Scientists. Kevin D. Carr, welcome to the Reading Circle with Marc Medley.
Mark, who is that guy? I'm like, my goodness, he has a really, really storied background. But no, I'm proud of those accomplishments. When you hear them like that, it kind of take you back. So I appreciate you having me on the show, though. Thank you very much. I'm humbled by that.
Well, I appreciate you taking me up on my offer. And ladies and gentlemen in the listening audience, I didn't even finish reading all of the bio. There's actually more. And Kevin, normally I try to read as much, if not all of it I can, particularly when it's long. And a lot of people really are kind of like embarrassed by it. But I try to help people understand that it serves as an inspiration, because someone in the listening audience can say, wow, if that can happen for Kevin, or if Kevin can do all of that, then maybe I'm going to get up off my duff and do some things too, that Absolutely. It can happen for me. So that's always my hope, that it's not to brag, it's not to try to make anybody feel any less, but it is to encourage and to inspire that, you know what, it can be done.
Well, it is true. It's my story, really, and you're actually reading back things that happened. So when you hear it like that, it does sort of sound a little, sort of inflated or anything, but that is true to the letter it's written. And I will tell you that it was not easy. It was a process. So that's a body of work that's almost a little bit over 20 years now. So when you think about that, it's probably still me needing to grow and learn and still have some more accomplishments. So my best days are ahead, actually.
See, and that's all in perspective and attitude, because somebody would read that and say, wow, you've done all that, and then still saying that the best days are ahead. Now, I know that's a two-sided coin, because some folks can say just the reverse, that people have gone through such trauma and such tragedy, and they still have that mindset, you know what, my best days are ahead. So to hear it both sides is, again, encouraging, and I applaud you. And when I read your bio, whenever I think I came across you on LinkedIn, I said, I have to have this brother on the show. and I'd written for a lot of different reasons, because as you heard me say in the intro and the opening, my guests of recent, because the show has been on the air 14 years, and over the time I've had people that do more than just write. But it seems like this year I've had truly Renaissance people on, and a lot of them have been females. So the fact that I have a Renaissance man is refreshing.
Well, we'll get some brotherly love over this phone and really help uplift some of the things that some men are doing as well. So, but I'm supportive of our women here in terms of what they're accomplishing. They're leaders in their own right.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Things happen.
Yes, indeed. And I've had some fantastic guests over the years, and I've met some wonderful people, even people I may not have seen physically, but just talking to them on the phone and connecting with them on social media, I feel like I know them. And now you are a part of that family of people I feel like I know, even though we're just meeting for the first time. But as I said, reading your bio and checking you out on LinkedIn and everything, I said, wow, I mean, this, is really accomplished. And it wasn't, this is the other piece. And I'm going to share some information with the audience. And audience, you know what to do. Get on your social media sites and let somebody know that Kevin D. Carr is on the air with me. But the thing is, it's not just about getting what you get just for you. You're actually helping others.
Yeah.
That's what fascinated and caught my eye the most, that it wasn't just about getting all that you can get. You're actually trying to help other people get what they can get.
I appreciate that. Really, that's been a lot of how I've been able to evolve and grow in my life. I've been blessed to find that my gift is loving people and serving people. I just have been very fortunate to do it in the business of sports, which is somewhat of an anomaly because you really think about coaches doing all the help, but there's a whole business behind the business that does what it does to support the success of that environment. So there are lots of talented people in marketing and business operations and advertising and sales and player development off the court that I did. So I'm happy that I was able to sort of find my passion, as I say, in the side of sport that often doesn't get attention. So I'm really excited about being able to talk about another industry that people themselves may have not ever thought about, and it's becoming much more apparent that it's needed. So I'm excited. So thank you for allowing me to share today.
I am, again, excited to have you on here for a lot of reasons. And the shows are also recorded, provided all the equipment is doing what it's supposed to do. But I'm excited because when I'm not doing this, and I know it's repetitive for my listening audience, they hear it every week, but it's germane to the discussion. When I'm not doing this particular show on the weekends, on Saturday mornings, during the week, I'm a school principal. And I work with kids. My particular school is a first grade to eighth grade school. And many of my kids, particularly, and I can't even say just my boys, because some of my girls have the same aspiration, but most of their aspirations are to play in the NBA or the NFL. Every now and again, I might hear Major League Baseball, but most of the time I'm going to be, in the NBA. And like you just said, there are so many other facets to all of the athletic leagues other than actually playing that they don't even realize there are so many career choices out there that, you could be in the NBA and never bounce a ball on the court.
Absolutely, and that is so true because I worked in an area called, when I first started, called Student Athlete Support Services. I started out as an advisor, and I got the job really on passion. I had been a mentor in college. I had been working with students, almost like a RA, where you serve on the floor as the lead. And I had done that every summer in a summer program, and I had done a decent job. And one day I'm finishing up my graduate degree, and my boss says, "Go to lunch with me, and you're going to meet this guy who's interviewing for a job for Student Athlete Support Services." And I said, okay. And I said, "What do you want me to do?" She says, "Well, I don't know about sports. You went to school here at Florida State, so you can give them some perspective, seeing that you're undergrad and grad or a future grad of the school in terms of your graduate degree." I said, okay. So she let me go with her, and to be honest with you, I was in graduate school starving, so, man, I needed a lunch, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was all about the Chili's Big Mouth Burger, right?
That's right.
But in reality, I prepared. I knew this guy was very, very important, and I wanted to do a good job for my boss because she really wasn't comfortable in the sports space. And I said I'd go. And she had to leave a little bit early, and she left a gentleman with me, and she says, Kevin will get you back to campus, and he'll finish the conversation about, campus life. And so he asked me, he said, hey, if you were me, what would you do to improve the student-athlete population and integrate it with, the campus? And I said, you don't know this, but my older brother played college football at Florida State. He actually went before I did, but he did not finish. He actually failed out academically. And he says, I'm sorry to hear that. And I said, what's more important is that there are a lot of guys like him who come and don't make it. And I said, if you come, you have to set up a program that's going to develop them holistically away from the game. They're going to spend many more years being a former athlete than a current one. So if I were you, guys like my brother, who I believe needed a little more special attention because he had some learning challenges, he learned differently, and we weren't able to detect that. And now that he's gone, he's sort of trying to find his way outside of sport, and he's struggling with that. So if I were you, I'd do that. So he kind of looked at me strangely, and he said, okay. I got back to the office, and my boss says, what did you say to him? I said, we talked about, my brother a little bit. She said, well, you were full of passion, and you know what? He called me, and do you know what he said? Do you know what he said? I said, no. I'm sorry if I kind of oversaid. I just got a little passion. I'm sorry. And she says, he asked me this question. He said, what are your plans for that young man when he finishes his graduate degree? Because if I get the job here, I want to hire him because he's got passion. He's got drive for this kind of work, and he doesn't even know it.
Wow.
If I come here, I want to get him in my department. I'm not going to give him a job. He's going to have to interview for it. But if he wins out, I can not make him good, but I can make him great because he's got it. He's got it.
That's right.
And that's how I got started. That was my first job. And I didn't start at the top either. I started with golf and tennis and cross country. And no offense, but I was from the project, so I was used to basketball.
Right.
And he said, no, you go here. You take this job and you grow where you plant it. So I started at the bottom, as they say, and began my career there.
But again, you've mentioned key things that those of you who are listening around the world, I hope you heard, if nothing else, two concepts that Kevin just brought up. And that was one, passion. I don't care what it is that you do in life, you must have the passion for it, because if you don't, it will be drudgery. And the second piece of it is he started at the bottom. Now, Kevin, in these days, many of our kids honestly believe they're going to step out of school and go straight to the top. And that causes a lot of frustration because they really think that they're going, because they have their degree or because they started their business or because they do it, that they're going to go straight from no name to the name or the business or the position that everybody in the world wants and is coveted, and you try to tell folks, no, it doesn't work that way. You have to work your way there. Not to mention what you were just describing in terms of doing the golf and the tennis and all that, and being accustomed to basketball, that made you well-rounded.
Oh man, I would tell you, first of all, with starting, I almost didn't get to college, and this is for your younger listeners. I had a guidance counselor who said, Kevin, based on your SAT, they do the pre-SAT, not
right.
ESAT. He says, based on your scores, your average in college is going to be no greater than a D average, or a D minus average based on these preliminary scores. I'm not sure you're going to get that much better. So if I were you, I'd just really focus on a vocational degree. Nothing wrong with a vocational degree at all for anybody who's had one, but I had some really strong goals to want to get to college. And
right.
when he said that to me, it really just struck a chord that my first test, I was the junior, and he's already saying, go this path. Didn't even give me a chance to sort of take it, a second, third time if I needed to. And I went home, told my mom, and she said, you know what, do you think you are college material? I said, absolutely, I think I can make it. She said, even if your brother didn't make it, you have to believe you can make it. And she says, with that, never let someone's perception of you become your reality. You make your reality.
Absolutely.
That we will figure out a way, and if you want to go, you go. And that's exactly what we did. We took that test over, and I made the mark. I got in by the skin of my teeth, but I got in. And she said to me when I left, she said, don't just go and graduate.
That's right.
That's important. So it was really that kind of coaching and inspiration and just challenging me to challenge myself. And I just really believe that those were some of the early challenges of just knowing that I could get in if I put my effort to it. And I had to do it several times in order to make the cut. And once I got in, there was no turning back. There was nothing they were going to do to send me home. I was making sure.
I know that's right.
That I got there. So that's part of the walk,
I know that's right. And you heard me say that I'm a principal in the school, and I can tell you right now, I was sitting here listening to you share what that guidance counselor said, and anytime I hear anything like that from a guidance counselor or any teacher, I get incensed. And if I had a guidance counselor that worked with me that I found out that told a student that, I would seek to have that person transferred, removed, fired, or what have you, only because it's too many that just a word like that would discourage for the rest of their days. Now, you were fortunate and blessed to have parents or your mom that said, you know what, forget what that guidance counselor said. Do you believe that?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of kids don't have that. A lot of kids will take at first blush what the guidance counselor said. Oh, well, and you know what, that's what they said, so I'm not going to do anything. So I'm grateful and thankful that you didn't listen to that guidance counselor. And I'm very clear whenever I meet with my staff and guidance counselor and everybody else, don't you ever tell a child they're not college material.
Yeah, and it's important for them to really have a vision for themselves. And I had a vision that I really wanted to get there. My brother, when he did not make it and he came home, he struggled so much. I just said, man, I cannot let this happen to me. And I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make my way the way I need to do it. And it was fortunate. And, when you talked earlier about, starting with the golf and tennis and cross country, no, those weren't the most glamorous, but I learned a ton about people and business.
That's right.
Particularly around the sport of golf, in terms of how things get done. And I can remember being on the course one day wanting the golf student athletes to come and talk to me. And they were out there, playing all the different holes. I had no idea what golf really was about. I just saw it from afar. So one day the coach says to me, he says, you know what, these student athletes aren't going to come and visit with you because they don't believe you. And I said, what do you mean? He said, they don't believe that you believe golf is a sport that you want to be working with. They see and feel that you want to be somewhere else. Until you vest yourself in this sport, they're not going to come and confide and give you their very best in terms of their concerns and you being able to help them. So, you go and you think about that. This is a head coach coaching me.
Right.
And he's telling me as a young 20-something-year-old how to kind of reach beyond what I wanted to do and really get into what I was assigned to do. He's basically saying, do your job. So I came back the next day, and there was a set of golf clubs out there. He said, hey, pick up this stick and swing the golf club. Man, I swung the stick and I almost hit somebody. So he said, they don't believe you because you don't even like golf. You need to learn how to hit. So he showed me how to do the interlock grip. He showed me my feet, and he showed me how to pull back and use my body as a pendulum and keep my head down and keep my right and left arms positioned well. And he just showed me all the technique, and I began to play. And I just hit from the range. And then I began to get a little bit better. And then one day, two golfers on the team came over shortly after, maybe within a week. They come over, and I said, man, for a guy who just started swinging, you actually have very good technique. And it showed me that I needed to vest myself in what they were doing. And once I showed them that and showed that I was committed and I liked what they liked, they began to open up to me and began to want to talk to me and began to share me their concerns around their academics and around their personal life and how to manage and how to talk to this professor and how to, get themselves their test retaken if they missed it because of a competition. And it was just a really good lesson for me to vest yourself and sell yourself on that activity, invest yourself in it, and people will begin to believe in you. Because if you don't believe in it, people aren't going to believe in you.
Correct. That's correct. I mean, I'm sitting here, and one of the things I love about the show, as I said earlier, in terms of meeting people, is that I learned so many insights just listening to each one of my guests. And again, something you said was very simple for the most part, yet at the same time profound. And that's this whole notion of credibility, believability, investing yourself in what it is that you're supposed to be supporting. And so your coach or supervisor, whoever, really gave you some wisdom and picked up on that. And then you had the opportunity to see it for yourself whenever the guys now started coming to you and started talking once they saw. And I laugh because in about a month or so, I'm heading over to France. And I've been to France before, and I do know with many of the French people, if you don't make at least the smallest amount of effort to speak a little bit of French, they're not going to make any effort to speak English back to you.
Right. And I've heard that too.
And it's true, because I was there years ago, back in the 90s. Matter of fact, when I was working for AT&T, I was there in the 90s, and that was very true. Now, if you make the effort to say, even if it's merci or parlez-vous or what, some of the words, they will now come back at you in English if they know it. If they know it and you don't make any effort, they're going to pretend like they don't know any English either. In other words, I'm using that example to say the same thing you were just saying. The reason the golfers were not responding to you in the beginning that the coach picked up on was they didn't think you believed. Mm-hmm. And that's a wonderful, for anything that you do in life, whether regardless of your profession, because people don't believe that we send off vibes. And the energy and the vibes and the passion and everything that we have, people connect with that. And if they don't feel you have it, they're not going to connect. And you're sitting there kind of wondering, like, how come they're not connecting with me? And you just kind of hit it right there. They're not connecting because they feel like you don't believe.
That's exactly right. And it's a great lesson on sales. People say they don't necessarily buy the product, they buy you. So when I talk to sales organizations about that, I really tell this story about me not connecting with the golf team and how once I decided to believe in the sport and pick up the sport and start playing it, they began to believe in me and they began to buy me. They began to buy my conversations around leadership and personal management of their time and their conversations and their companionship and their character in terms of guarding that as, up-and-coming athletes, how they needed to be mindful of that. So it became very apparent that I believed, and once I believed, they believed in me, and I was able to not so much sell me, but sell what I was doing to help them grow themselves beyond just the golf course and get them to understand the total aspect of being a student and an athlete. And and the golf thing is paying off to this day. I play quite regular. I have golf bag, golf clubs in the back of my car. I've been able to play on courses all over the world. I've been able to be in conversations where people say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin, you can't go because you don't play golf." You assume I can swing, and then when I get out there, people are amazed that this 6'3" guy
right.
can pick up this one wood and strike it 250 yards and keep going. So it's really been a big difference maker in my career, giving me access and credibility, as you mentioned, to places that people never thought or assumed I couldn't do because of my background. But it's been a wonderful thing, and to this day I'm so thankful that my boss started me at the bottom, so I now have a true appreciation. And to the last part about this golf was in that first year, the team made it to the national championship, and they invited me to go with them. and I got to meet one of the most prolific golfers when he was starting his career, Tiger Woods at the time. So it was at the time he was just known as Eldrick Woods,
Right.
But it was a really good lesson that, man, I'm starting to really meet some pretty neat people because of this whole opportunity that was given to me, and I didn't take it for granted. I began to take it and run with it.
I know that's right. And I tell folks all the time, there's no such thing as a wasted experience. I mean, you may go down a path that you may think this has absolutely nothing to do with where I'm trying to go, only to realize that what you learned from that experience comes back later. Just as you said, the stuff that I learned from my coach and working with the kids with golf is still paying off to this day. And so no experience is ever wasted. Listening audience, if you've just joined us, I hope you've been with us since 6. My guest is Kevin D. Carr, and he is the CEO and the principal of PRO, the number 2 CEO. It's PRO2CEO, but I want to make sure you get it correctly because it's PRO, the number 2 CEO. I'm going to share some information with you that I need to share with you. While I'm doing that, get on every last one of your social media sites and let somebody know this is an inspiring interview that they need to hear, because you never know, as we were just talking about, you never know. There might be one tidbit that Kevin may say that may be the spark for you to get up and say, you know what, if that can happen for Kevin, it can happen for me. So do that. I'm going to share this with you. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. Do what I've asked you to do in terms of letting somebody know, because, again, I don't like folks to miss some good stuff, and this is some good stuff going on here.
I started going cold turkey. Well, at least when I'm in the car.
I know I shouldn't do it, but it's so hard to stop. That's why I hide it from myself, so I won't be tempted.
I used to do it all the time. I stopped by locking it in my glove compartment.
My friend used to do it way too much. Now I turn it off when we're in the car.
My solution is simple. I just don't do it.
There are lots of ways to stop yourself and others from texting and driving. How will you stop? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hey, what's up? Thinking about you. XOXOXO. Want to snuggle. ... JK. Hit me back. You getting these texts? ? We should hang later. I miss you. Holla at ya, boy. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you at home? Where are you? What are you doing? OMG. You are making me mad. Are you with your ex? You better text me back. I'm waiting outside your house.
Relentless, aggressive texting is like sending an angry robot to deliver your message. When does the robot become dangerous? Let us know at that'snotcool.com.
That'snotcool.com.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Hi, my name is Stan Myers, and I'm here at FM 88.7. I do a jazz show called Just a Mood. And if you like the music, anything from Louis to Lester Bowie, I'm your man. That's Sunday afternoons, 3 to 6. Looking to hear from you, okay?
If you've just joined us, we've been on the air since 6 o'clock a.m. right here on WP 88.7 FM, and we are web streamed around the world on gobrave.org. So no matter what time zone you are in, if you have internet connectivity, you can catch the show. All you have to do is turn on your computer, go to gobrave.org, turn on your speakers, hit the button that says listen live or listen now, and you can hear everything that's going on with this inspirational interview this morning. My guest is Kevin D. Carr, and he's calling from Florida. Kevin, what's the temperatures down in Florida? Because I know it's been cold around the country, but I don't think you're as cold as we are.
Oh, man, you're going to be mad.
Uh-oh. No, yeah, I know.
It's a nice warm 51 degrees in Tampa, Florida this morning.
51, I feel like a heat wave here, man. We've been down in the 10s and the zeros and the teens, and we're supposed to get up near 40 today. That's going to feel real good.
Oh, man, congratulations. I've been watching the weather. As I say, watching it. I have not set foot up there in a little while. I obviously, used to live in New York for the last, almost 14 years, so I definitely can understand what it's like to live in the Northeast, having been born up there as well.
I know that's right. Well, again, I laughed whenever you were talking about the commentary about, well, I'm sorry you can't go because you don't play golf, because a lot of times, and for listening audience, if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm sure you have deduced or deducted or kind of inferred or figured that Kevin is African-American as I am. And so we're listening to two African-American men, and in many cases, because of society or whatever, there are different stereotypes or what have you. And, of course, stereotypically, people assume if you're tall and African-American and male that you automatically play basketball. Not necessarily the case. And, Kevin, I laugh because many times people would ask me that question. And I was a big racquetball player when I was in college. I took the course while I was in school and then actually began to play the game and go to the courts and stuff. So I really loved racquetball. And so when people would say, do you play basketball? Like, no, I don't play. That's not my game. Racquetball is my game. They would look at me like I had three heads. And it wasn't associating African-American and racquetball.
I agree.
Yeah, the association, so certainly until Tiger Woods, really, we weren't even being associated with golf either. So I'm quite sure a lot of that still is around. And at the time you were talking about, I knew it was around because Tiger has made it more acceptable, or at least visually people have, less of a concept, less of a hard time saying, well, black people don't play. Black people play everything. They play tennis, they play golf, they play racquetball, lacrosse. I mean, we play it all, actually. It's just that we're known more for some other sports. Now, as we're talking about that, I noticed as I was reading in the bio, we were doing the player development and the player character in the NBA. And that, again, is so crucial. And one of the mission at my school is to develop not only the kids' intellect, but to develop their character. That's like the two things that we're looking to develop in our students are intellect and character, not just the intellect, but the character as well. And people ask me, well, why are you putting so much emphasis on character? And I tell people, well, you could have the intellect and no character, and most likely you're not going to get too far. And you can also have the character and not much intellect, and you're probably not going to get too far. But if you have both of them together, and if I had my choice, I'll take the character over the intellect, because eventually I could develop your intellect. I may or may not be able to develop your character. So to hear that you were talking about the character piece, especially when we hear so much in the NBA, the NFL, the Major League Baseball, this, that, and the other, about so many of the players getting themselves in trouble. And your assignment, if I'm reading it correctly, was to kind of, develop that character piece, keep them on the straight and narrow. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, so, I used to work in a department called NBA Player Development. The overall department was player programs, but the development part was really about the off-the-court development, who you are as
exactly,
a person, and what your character, what your conversation, and what your companionship should be. I used to think of it like the 3 C's, and it was really important for a young man who was going into a multi-billion-dollar business industry like sports and entertainment, because you are an athlete, but you become somewhat of a celebrity for that league or for that team, and particularly in your market where you are. And it's really a really interesting opportunity for these young men. And I say it's a phenomenal opportunity because very few people in the world get the type of exposure, get the access, get the social, get the all the opportunities that sort of come. But with it comes a ton of work that a lot of people don't realize.
Absolutely.
This type of job is, everything you do is in a fishbowl, and your performance is measured in numbers. So every night, everybody knows. Just imagine you work in a job, and everything you do, there's an audience, observing you and filming you and capturing what you do. So you have to be very capable of managing that in an environment that's extremely competitive. And the other side is that it's competitive. Like, if you don't perform well, you lose your job. Very few of us have to deal with where someone's going to come and take our job if you don't do well in this next year. So it's a highly rewarded, but it's a lot of risk. And what we really focused on is helping them become, professionals within that job. There are roles and responsibilities that you have to manage. There's risk you have to manage. There's obligations that function with the business that you have to help the business with, and then you have to have a social responsibility requirement as well. And for a lot of young men, it's a lot to do and to be able to balance well, not to mention the demands that they have on them personally with their family. So we were really charged with helping them really be the best person they could be in terms of their role and responsibility to themselves, the role and responsibility to the team, and the role and responsibility to the community in which they were a part of. And it doesn't always click overnight when you're like 20-something and you have a lot of money and you have a lot of exposure and you have a lot of people coming at you for all kinds of things, opportunities, such. So we were there really to be the voice of reason, to really be someone who didn't want anything other than to see them succeed. And it's a very, very well-supported and very well-thought-out strategy that each of the leagues really have in place, and they have some excellent professionals who have to be managers, they have to be facilitators, they have to be mentors, they have to be life coaches, they have to be facilitators, you have to be a teacher, you have to be almost like a big brother in some sense. So it's a multifaceted role, and it's a fascinating job, one I was very honored to have. So it's a lot on a young man, but it's good to know that they have very good, qualified people helping them to try to make the most of the opportunity.
It is so important of what you're speaking of, because yesterday I caught two ends of the spectrum in that arena, and that is I was listening to the news, and they had a big thing going on up here on the news station, and they had folks vote for the most iconic figure over the last 50 years in various areas, entertainment, sports, what have you. And the most iconic athlete voted was Derek Jeter. Oh, wow. And one of the guys off the street that they interviewed off the street, they said, well, how'd you feel about Derek Jeter being voted, the iconic athlete of the last 50 years? And the guy on the street said, well, this is a young man that's made over $200 million or more playing baseball over the last however many years, and not one time did we ever hear his name in a scandal. Mm-hmm. And then last night I was watching television, one of these, I don't have cable, so it's one of these, whatever is a free network channel. I think it's the Escape Channel, whatever, and they were doing one of these, I think the name of the show was Snapped, and they happened to be profiling Sean Gale that used to play for the Chicago Bears, and how one of his many girlfriends wound up being killed by another one of the girlfriends. I think it was like a list of 18 or 20 women, and one of those women on the list killed this one, and it just got really ugly, and he had nothing to do with it per se, other than the lifestyle in and of itself kind of fostered it and created it. But you hear so many athletes that get themselves in trouble. And for those of us who are not making that kind of money, who are not in the line like that, you just kind of wonder, like, what more could you possibly want? You have the fortune, the fame, you're playing ball, you're making all kinds of money, and yet for whatever reason, you can't seem to keep yourself out of trouble. I mean, we got the whole Aaron, Hernandez from the Patriots, former Patriots. He's up there now on a murder trial. So you just kind of wonder, how do people get themselves in these predicaments? But then it goes back to what I think I heard you say. I'm almost sure you said it was at the end of the day, we're all still people. Yeah,
they're human beings, and it's a lot to do with your decision making. I always felt like if you really could at an early age in this sport understand that you're part of a business now. And you're going to be looked at not as a young kid, because you now are paid almost like a CEO. And your ability to be CEO-like and your mentality is really going to help you. And you have to be able to decipher and assess and forecast and strategize and be able to delegate and know boundaries and limitations, almost like a CEO. So I would coach my guys saying, look, this isn't, college anymore. You're going to have to develop some business acumen to where you're going to have to be able to make tough decisions on a consistent basis.
Right.
I used to say your choice management skills will be your best friend. There's no doubt you're super talented. Now we have to see how well you're going to manage that on and off the court. So your coaches will teach you everything you need to know and will help you with your choices. But when you're off on your own, this is when you're going to have to be able to make those tough decisions as though you're protecting the livelihood of your overall business and your stakeholders. So if you can adapt to that mentality, and it's not one that they can almost adapt to overnight, it really become incremental, and that's where you see differences in guys like LeBron James, who really understood very early. I worked with him when he was in high school, when he was a McDonald's All-American, and it was amazing to see his ability to, at that time when he was 17, to really start understanding he was about to come into a lot of opportunity, and how he managed it and who he surrounded himself with was going to be the factor. So his choice management skills were up the day he came in the business. He already knew that it was going to be a major undertaking, and he committed himself to having the right people around him and being able to understand if he didn't know something, he had someone very close to him who could help him. And he's been able to really do the same thing, I think, in a lot of ways that Jeter has, meaning that you don't really hear a lot about him at all in terms of negativity. It's mainly all the great things and great opportunities he has before him. So it, to me, comes down to character, and it comes down to choices. And you have to be very good at them at an early age in this position. We know they're 20-somethings generally, but if you don't, it can really derail your career and cause a lot of challenges. And it's the difference in having short careers and long careers for some people.
Right. Now, I noticed in the bio as well, we were talking in terms, and we laughed before we got on the air in terms of clothing, and I see where you had introduced a dress code in the NBA. And interestingly enough, one of the years, as a matter of fact, I still do it with our basketball team, but this particular year was when I first started at the school I was in. We are a basketball team, and I would tell them, look, on game day, you have to come in here in shirt and tie. Like, you won't have to do full, because we were talking 8th graders at the time, and in an urban area. And I said, you don't have to do a full suit, but I do expect you to come in here in shirt and tie. And Kevin, you would be, first off, you'd be amazed, then maybe you wouldn't be amazed, how many ties I had to tie because the kids didn't know how to tie.
Oh, I've done plenty.
Yeah. And then secondly, how many didn't even have like a dress shirt or a tie? But the other piece of it was, I got teachers started donating, and you know what, I'll sponsor this kid, I'll get him the shirt and ties. But that season, when we instituted that, we went undefeated. And I tried to help the kids connect your dress, like how you feel about yourself. You were coming to school that particular day, on game day, you were like a little celebrity. You had on your tie, and everybody knew you were on the basketball team because you had on your shirt and tie. And if you chose to wear a jacket, you had on your suit or whatever. But that particular season, the esteem and everything else was so high. And a part of that I attributed to the fact that they were coming now in shirt and tie on game day. And I told them, if you ever go to the NBA, this is what you're going to have to do.
Right. Well, it goes down to, it's business, and you're representing a brand. And, if you wanted your brand to be at its very best, and people never saw you again, the first thing they would say would be, at least he looked the part. If you never spoke a word, and obviously speak, you want to back that up with talent and ability to deliver. But, that decision with, things like a dress code were really predicated on the business wanting to really step up its perception and wanting to put forth a different impression and really begin to move. And now you see, NBA players lauded as some of the best dressers, and some of them are now taking it even further, getting involved in fashion and
that's right,
and the like, and having businesses and clothing lines and et cetera. But I will say it was really a business decision. I look at my own business, and I try to make sure that everything we do that's front-facing gives off a look and feel of professionalism. I've been in several championship environments and been with very elite organizations, so I know what it looks like.
That's right.
So when you do see it, it really does, and the proof is really in your customers, it's in proof on the feedback you get when you do look good. Just sort of walking down the street, you know, people say, "Hey, you look great. You know, I love your hair. Or I love that dress. Or I love that suit." That makes you feel good.
That's right.
And it gives you some a good sense that you're doing something that caused someone to do that. The same thing with your business. You know, people tend to say, "Well, why did that person get more opportunities?" Well, people believe that when he goes out, he represents or she represents that business or that organization well because of sort of the way they look. That's the first part of it. Obviously, you want to be able to do the job, but a lot of people miss that the dress is part of the overall. It's one part of it. It's not the only part, but it's very significant. And I've always, myself, you know, my mom used to make sure that, you know, we left, you know, clean.
That's right.
Top to bottom, and we created a good impression. She would say, "You never get a chance to make a good, you know, impression. You never get to make a good first impression over again. So you want to come with your best." So, you know, when you went to church, you were dressed up.
That's right.
School, you had a certain look.
That's right.
And you took those clothes off when you got home from school. You didn't mess those good clothes because you only got one set.
That's right. That's your school clothes and play clothes. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So we were really taught, you know, those basics. And you know, I would say even when I was at the NBA and even how I operate now, you will catch me always in the appropriate attire based on the setting.
Correct.
I have to realize, you know, there's a certain attire for a certain occasion. And,
correct.
And I was able to really understand that, and it really helped me in business and helped me continue to be successful because I didn't want to be discounted on the first look.
Correct.
First opportunity based on how I looked. I wanted to get way past that. And a lot of people are saying, well, they should just take me based on how who I am, and it's just not like that. A lot of it is, you know, what you present up front. Can you even get to first base is the question. A lot of people are not even getting to base because they don't want to, you know, humble themselves and say, I want to be a part of this industry, a part of this environment, organization. I'm going to have to follow some type of protocol. And right now, people sometimes don't want to do that, but it's all about getting in. And
that's right.
Prove it. Then you can have some room to stretch your wings. And once you know, understand that, you can really say, put yourself aside and say, what's the bigger goal here? What am I trying to do here? Okay, so does it kill me to put on a collared shirt and a straight pair of pants to go in and sit down and interview? No, because what happens on the other side, I could possibly get this job.
That's right.
So we missed the point because of sort of initial hang-ups, and I've just never let that stand in my way. I've always gone after the opportunity because I've been able to see it, and I've not put myself, you know, before it. I've said, okay, I want the opportunity, so whatever I have to do it. If that means dressing up, that's not a problem for me.
I know that's right, and interesting you were saying about being addressed for the appropriate setting because also I'm an adjunct professor, and the course that I teach was public speaking. And there's a whole section that I do on, depending on where you're giving your speech, will determine how you dress. And so using the golf example, like a matter of fact, I think that's what we used in class, was let's say you were giving a speech, you know, at a golf outing. Would it be appropriate for you to wear golf attire? And a lot of kids would get tripped up on that question. They would think, no, you have to come in the suit and tie. And like, no, it would be appropriate if you came in golf attire or a polo shirt and you actually had the golf club and you were demonstrating something with the golf club or what have you. That would still be appropriate for that speech. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think one attire fits all. And not necessarily so. It depends on the audience that you're addressing, and it depends on the occasion. So on some occasions, the appropriate dress may be a polo shirt and a nice pair of pants. On other occasions, it may be the full-blown suit with the cufflinks and everything else. You really have to kind of discern, how do I need to dress to make this presentation, as you said. And that's a whole section in the public speaking course that I teach that's in there, and people really don't recognize it. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, folks, it's all connected. It's all a part of the package. As you just heard Kevin say, it really is all about getting in. A lot of people kind of poo-poo that old adage of it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so that may be kind of true, but you know what? Who you know may get you in the door, but what you know is what keeps you there. So as you just said, the trick is first you got to get in the door.
do. And I've been very fortunate, just to figure it out. Even in what I do currently, I've leveraged a lot of my relationships with my new company, PRO2CEO, about, making sure that I've really protected them and guarded them, and people have a lot of respect for me based on how I treated them when I was with my other full-time, jobs, and now I get to do PRO2CEO full-time. I get a lot of opportunities just based on people remembering how I was. I was a likable guy, I was a well-dressed guy, I was a well-spoken guy, I was a professional guy, and now with my company, I do the same thing. I am known for the same things. I'm just doing it in a different way now, and I think a lot of times people will not, understand how it all works. It's all connected. All of it kind of links to the next thing. So if you set up the one, it sets you up well for the next.
Absolutely. I tell you what, we're at the 7 o'clock hour. I'll need to do a couple of things. But, Kevin, as I always tell my guests, the hour goes very quickly. And so I've always, because I have the flexibility of my 3-hour window that I'm on the air, the guests have the opportunity to extend if they have the time to hang out. And if you have a couple more minutes, I really do want to get to your upcoming projects in terms of your book. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, because a lot of folks, and my wife included, and even myself to that matter, kind of is looking toward moving into entrepreneurship. So I want to talk a little bit about how did you move to your company, because you were just alluding to that, which is a great lead-in, as well as your upcoming book projects. So if you got a couple more minutes to hang out. Great. So I'm going to do what I need to do to roll over into the new hour. We have flipped over. Actually, this is going to now become an extended version of the Reading Circle. Usually we go into the M&M hour and then the Martha and Friends hour. But we're going to extend again this morning because the interviews are that important. For those of you in the listening audience, this may be your spark plug. You may listen to something that Kevin says in terms of starting his own business, and you just heard him say the characteristics and traits that he used when he was working for the various organizations gave him a reputation. And now he was able to step out and start his own business. And the reputation now feeds into his own business. He's able to go to his clients and say, do you remember? Or they tell him, I remember when you were. So it's, again, as we said a couple of minutes ago, it's all connected. I'm going to roll us into the 7 o'clock hour. We'll talk a little bit about starting your own business and then the upcoming book projects that he has coming. And before you know it, we'll be on our way.
WPSC-FM 88.7, Wayne, New Jersey.
Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network. Brave New Radio.
Brave New Radio. Give us your tired, your poor, your hungry, your rockers, your punks, your freaks, your geeks, your Greeks, your party animals, your gangsters, your commuters, your residents, your students, your alums, your lawyers, your truckers, your calls, your tweets. And we'll give you rock, classic, indie, punk, alternative, easy, hard, raps, rhymes, mixes, and drops. We'll give you kick-ass music because we're WPSC 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio. Sound good? Straight from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center, here's your local forecast.
Well, we've actually moved up a tiny notch as we head on our way to our high today of 37. We're at 10.3 degrees right now. Expect sunshine and a few clouds, high of 37, low of 24. Tomorrow, Sunday, partly cloudy, high of 44, low of 24 during the evening. It's going to be mostly clear tomorrow night, and then as we roll on into Monday, expect sunny skies, high of 45 with a low of 27, clear to partly cloudy Monday night. Tuesday, showers early, becoming a steady rain later in the day, high of 44, low of 33. And rounding out the forecast on Wednesday, intervals of clouds and sunshine. Finally, we reached the 50 mark. High on Wednesday, low of 27. So again, for today, expect a high of 37. We're going to get near 40. But tonight, we're going to drop back to 24 degrees. Don't forget that we actually spring forward with the clocks. We lose the hour for this one day, folks. We don't lose an hour for the rest of the year. You only lose it for this one day. And you know I tease every time we either move forward or move back because, Kevin, I actually get people that really think they lost that hour for the rest of the year, or either they gained an hour for the rest of the year. and it's like, no, it's still the 24 hours. It's just for that one night. So I have some fun with that every time it's time for the clocks to change over. But, folks, don't forget tonight we do spring forward. Also, it's recommended that you change any batteries or anything on your smoke alarms and your CO alarms and any of those things just to keep them fresh and current in the event, God forbid, something were to happen, you can be alarmed. So again, tonight, we change over to our daylight savings time. If you've just joined us, we've been on the air since 6 o'clock, and my guest is Kevin D. Carr, and he is a Renaissance man, and he's earned every bit of it, because that's the other piece we were talking about. A lot of people think when you get to a certain level, Kevin, that, you just plopped there. No one wants to kind of acknowledge or talk about or even recognize the work that it took to get there. And as we said earlier, many of our kids, and even some of our who are not kids, really expect to start whatever they do at the top of it, which when you really sit there and think about it, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. No one starts at the top of anything, but a lot of people really believe that's where they're going to be, and they get frustrated when they're not. So I applaud you, and I'm happy to be sharing this interview for so many different reasons. As I said earlier, both Kevin and I are African-American men. And coincidentally enough, this is the 50th year weekend of the whole Edmund Pettus Bridge March, where they were marching for the voting rights and with Dr. King and that whole slew of people who was working that during the civil rights movement. This is the 50th anniversary of that. Kevin and I are talking. You heard him say earlier how, he's well-spoken, well-dressed. Sadly, in too many arenas, that's not what's associated with African-American males. So that's another reason why I am thrilled to be having this interview this morning. As well as Kevin worked for organizations, but he's also started his own company that we talked about earlier, is PRO2CEO. Talk a little bit about, what was it like for you to transition over from now working for various organizations to having your own organization?
Yeah, I recently spoke at a program with the President's Initiative, My Brother's Keeper, and it's a mentoring program. And we mentored all kinds of kids. There were, African Americans, there were Caucasians, Latin, et cetera, and there were girls there too. So it wasn't just, males. And one of the things I got to really talk about is, setting goals. And people would say, you worked for the NBA. How could you possibly leave, a position as a vice president at a much respected organization? And one of the things I tell people is, that transition wasn't automatic. It was one that took time and took, strategy and took planning. So it wasn't something that I just leaped and did one day and just changed up. It took time, but here's the thing. I had set my mind at when I started as the advisor that I talked about at the very beginning of the program, and got, those incremental moves. Every job I had been recruited, and, I made moves. I moved from Florida to Michigan, Michigan to New York, New York to South Carolina, South Carolina back to New York, and now New York back to Florida where I live now. And I had set a goal that I wanted to be at the top of the development of athlete profession, and I was able to get there. And once I got there, it became very clear to me that I enjoyed the job, but I wanted to set new goals. And when I achieved that, getting to the top of my profession, particularly at the NBA, of what I did, I just sat and thought about it. I said, do I want my career to continue to go in this direction, or do I want to try some new things? And I just said, I reached my goal. I'm satisfied. I'm very happy. I'm very blessed to have the experiences that I've had. Now I'd like to just reset the button and see what else is out there. And I challenge myself to think big, to really think out the box.
Right.
Say, what is it that I'd like to do next? And I said I'd like to have my own business. I have a twin brother, identical twin brother, and he is an entrepreneur, and he had been telling me, you can do some different things as an entrepreneur. You can control your schedule. So as an executive, I really didn't have control of a lot of the time I spent.
Right.
So now as my own business owner, one of the things I was able to really gain was control back in terms of my schedule.
Exactly.
How I want it to come and go. And now I'm even more busier than I've ever been. But I will say that I can now control when I want to be somewhere with my family in particular, or when I need to be somewhere else.
Right.
I can schedule around it a lot better. But it was really about understanding what was next for me and what I wanted it to be. And it wasn't something that was short. It took some time, it took some strategy, but I'm glad, we're here and we're making headway.
Well, I can totally relate because I'm already, and that's where you and I will talk offline at some point. I'll email you what I'm referring to at the moment. But I know next is something dealing with public speaking, and it's kind of like in the arena of what you're doing there, working with the entertainers and the athletes or what have you. Mm-hmm. But it's that same thing. You're right. You reach you reach your certain places where you want to go and you say, okay. And that's what I mean by Renaissance people. Because you have, sadly, at least it's sad in my eyes, and maybe not for everybody because everybody had their own opinion. But I think, you, and I talked about this last week with my guest that I had on the line. You have some people that honestly think that you can only do one thing in your lifetime. And people kind of look at you like you're crazy whenever you kind of expand out. Like you just said, you left the NBA. I've always been the type of person, if it's something I really wanted to do, I just went on and did it. I remember when I first started working for AT&T, I was recently married a couple years in. I just started working for AT&T. Career was going, family was going. I'd always wanted to go in the Air Force. So I literally picked up the phone, called a recruiter, took the test, and took a military leave of absence from AT&T, went in and joined the Air National Guard and became a jet engine mechanic. And so, people were looking at me like, wait a minute, you got to be out of your mind. You were working for one of the top companies in the world, and you left that to go in the Air Force? Yes. Why? Because I wanted to. Same thing, many years later, education has always been in my heart. That's why I say, ultimately, when I'm done, it's going to be a blending of education and travel and entertainment and athletes and so forth and so on. But education has always been in my blood. So I literally, after 15 years with AT&T, left it and took the test again and became a teacher. Lost half of my salary and went into teaching and did extremely well. Back to that passion thing again and moved way quicker in the education arena than I did even in the corporate arena, and to the point where within the first 5 years of teaching, I moved into administration and to vice principal, then principal. I'm saying all that to say I've never been stuck into any one thing. And I'm kind of like you. Once you get into whatever that thing is, you set the goal for the next thing. And that's how you keep moving ahead. And the next thing doesn't always have to be necessarily related to the thing that you left.
Right.
For me, and again, going back to starting at the bottom, I totally relate because I laugh because the very thing that I'm talking about, I had those same notions as a college student. That whole thing, wisdom and youth thing. But whenever I came out of school, I had my degree in business administration. I just knew I was a hot shot, and I'd already been telling people I was going to work for AT&T anyway. And so when the recruiter from AT&T came, I just knew I was going to get CEO position. And so he says, well, you know what? I see on your resume you can type. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, we don't have any management positions open at this time, but would you be interested in starting in a non-management role and work your way up? I said, sure, if that's my foot in the door. So Kevin, started as a secretary at AT&T before I did that for a year and a half before I was promoted into the management ranks, and then kind of moved a couple of times in the management ranks, and as I said, left and went into education. I'm saying all that to say for the listening audience, you don't have to be locked into any one thing or any one company. And you heard Kevin just say he was willing to move. Now, that's the one thing I haven't done yet that I know I am eventually going to have to do, and that's that whole thing of being able to move. Like you said, you went from Michigan to Florida to New York to South Carolina. So at some point, I'm going to have to do the same thing. That's what I haven't done yet. But you have to be willing to do it.
Yeah, you do. And part of this journey that I'm on now is it's allowing me to still play to my strengths. I was able to, start, the PRO2CEO brand because I had a lot of interest in wanting to change the narrative of when people make transitions, including myself, high-level executives that want to do something else and high-profile athletes and artists and even organizations who are high-profile but want to get better, So the PRO2CEO is really about, being the CEO of your life and being able to be in control of it to where you assess and you understand the strategy and you get better at managing and leading, and then you go into this new entity with the progression model that allows you to progress to hopefully being your own entrepreneur. We really believe there's a really great need for entrepreneurship in our country. Small businesses really help America grow and sustain its position. And we believe that this audience that we work with has a high potential to be great entrepreneurs. We want to help them make the second career shift successful. So we were vested a whole lot into that model and being a outfit and firm that can really help you go from concept to implementation to execution and sustainability of a business. And then we also strengthen organizations. We have organizations say, hey, you've been at some of the best organizations in the world. What does that look like? So within our business model, we have this concept called the 9 medallions, and it's really a leadership model for life and for leading others. And it starts with models of confidence to humility to ingenuity to seizing opportunities to being able to really have the right attitude in your environment. So we've been approached by city governments. We've been approached by, large nonprofits. We've been approached by corporate. We've been approached by education to say, what does success look like? We want to bring that into our organization. We want to create change. And we've had individuals say, hey, I want to start a business. I want this to happen, and can you help me do that? So we've been very fortunate on top of that business. I've now been, even as Kevin Carr in general, the brand, me, just in general, people consider me a brand, and, I'm humbled by that. So my brand is like, how do you reinvent yourself? How do you go from here and be successful over there and be successful over there and be successful here? So I've been able to now really put that into practice, and it really comes down to these new things that I'm writing about that are now going to be offered not just for the audience I used to work with, which was just players and these successful teams and being around these successful coaches and legendary people. Now I'm going to share this with everybody because I believe it has application, and it will give people a chance to really get insight on how to not wait on something to come to them, but go out and get it and be able to have a strategy and plan that will have you be able to figure it out, find your passion, and be able to install it to where you can use it for whatever level you're at. So whether you're a parent, whether you're a coach, whether you're a business professional, or you're an athlete, it's applicable to you. And then as you use it, you can sustain it and allow it to help grow you and fill you with character and with leadership ability. So I'm happy and excited about some of these new projects we've got coming up.
Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna be one of the first ones in line for that book. Do you have do you have the title and everything in mind, or you are
2016 piece?
Okay.
But we're going to do a release of a precursor book to later on this year that I've got that's pretty exciting as well. So we've got two projects, one for sometime in 2015 and a second one for 2016, and they're both still sort of under construction. But I will tell you, you're gonna be one of the first to know. How about that?
That'll work, because I'll have you come back on the show and we'll talk about just the book itself.
Oh man, you're going to be blown away when you have this to talk about. You're going to be laughing and relating and connecting and just putting all the dots together. You do that well, so you'll really get into this.
I know I will, because again, it's kind of like I was explaining earlier. And I was sitting here listening as you were talking, because I said whenever I was talking a couple of minutes ago about people really kind of get one-tracked, but I kind of know historically people did do the 50 years at one company and get the gold watch. Mm-hmm. Over time, that has changed, where you're talking people will do, and that's why your business is so critical, people will go through career changes now way more than in the past. So I forget the number, but at one point I know it was something like, it was a fair number, between 5 and 7 career shifts. And maybe I'm quoting the number wrong, but I know it's at least 2. But I think 2 is on the
people generally will change jobs somewhere between 3 to 5.
Okay, so the 5 number was about right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so that's where it transitionally, a company like yours, to be able to consult, because people think that's easy. We're talking now in China, but it's not easy. It's doable, but it's not necessarily easy. And I think when people can face the brutal facts And then they can turn and say, okay, what do I need to do to make this happen? Because it's not something that happens in a flash cut. Even if you're fired, even if you're laid off, it's still not a flash cut. You still need to have a plan to transition into whatever it is you're doing next. And so to have somebody to help you along, or somebody that you can call, or a company you can hire or something, is very important. And that's why, even because the whole thing about entrepreneurship and business is kind of like see a need and fill it.
Right.
And so at this point, when people are transitioning between various careers and jobs, that's a need.
Yeah, it is, Mark. And one of the things that, we felt like we wanted to capture the transition space. I've made multiple moves. I'm living proof of how when you make a move, there's a lot of unknowns. So what we're good at is making the unknown known, looking at the fear and helping you break it down to where it's a process and a strategy, and then being able to create the interest and ability to help you find that new interest and be able to assess your ability to really be able to do it. And then if you're good and you feel comfortable, help you make the next step to finding the right opportunity, almost making it fit like a nice pair of shoes for you. So now you walk in confidence saying, okay, I've got some really good evidence here that I can make it, and there's a bit of the unknown, but I've got a partner here that can help me make the known. So a lot of, athletes and stuff have come to us saying, help me figure this out and help us make the unknown known so I can get new confidences, because I can shoot a shot. I know how to shoot a shot.
Right.
Okay, I got confidence there, but this confidence over here, I don't know anything about it, and I really need someone trusted, someone who understands the walk and the background that I come out of, and someone who's doing it and doing it well. And we have a great team of consultants, experts that are part of my group. My partners are staunch businessmen themselves and have a high level of success, as well as the people that we partner with. Beyond just the immediate PRO2CEO team, we have some really good relationships across all kinds of industries. So there's not something in technology, something in entertainment. If you want to look at just business and education, we're able to assess that. So we're really excited about the future and what we're going to be able to hopefully offer people. So we're out there, and you know how to find us on the web and et cetera. But it's been, so far a fantastic ride.
Well, I listened to you, and interestingly enough, we've come full circle. And I'll say that because what you just said was, when I'm helping you transition, I'm not doing that just from what I think. I'm telling you what I've gone through and what I know, which is essentially the same thing the coach was telling you when you took on the golf job.
Yeah. yeah.
So
great point.
I listened to you say that and said, we've come full circle. The same experience, the same thing that the golf coach was telling you is the same thing you're telling now your clients. I'm telling you what I've experienced. I've gone through it. I have the proof. The proof is in the pudding. This is why you can believe me, because I've been there, done that, and still doing it. The other thing I heard in that is, and it came back to mind about a month, maybe 2 months ago, one of my guests was Carlita Hodge. She was the former wife of Craig Hodge that played basketball in the NBA. And she was explaining, when we were talking in the interview, was how, and this just never occurred to me, was that for athletes, even the off season is a major transition. And she was sharing how, whenever the season would end and, her husband would be home, he would be in a funk most of the time because they weren't hearing the cheering of the crowds. They weren't out on the court. They weren't in that environment of the game. So off season, she said, was really not the best time to be. And I said, wow, I have never thought of that. So even going from active season to off season is a transition for athletes that I had just never thought of.
Well, the culture is a very directed culture. It's a very strategic and planned out. Every move is really orchestrated by it being on a schedule. That's why it's a big deal when the NBA schedule is announced, because now okay, I got to start planning everything around this, because it's going to take such an effort to execute on all these dates. You're talking about 82 games, let alone, we haven't even mentioned playoffs and semifinals and finals. So when the off season hits, bam, you don't have that structure. and you have to now do it for yourself. And a lot of times, really when you're working within teams and organizations, it's a very dependent and deliberate environment. You really depend on people to do their part so you can do your part, or else it's almost a little bit like a train wreck. If they don't, you can get through it, but it does derail you at times when people don't do their part. So when you have to do it on your own, you're now you have the autonomy to do it on your own. People kind of struggle a little bit because they're used to being directed. So I can see that point that she was making is very much like that sometimes with some. If you don't have someone there to help you plan it out, then you have to pick up the pieces, and sometimes people are a little slower to plan it for themselves because they haven't been in that space and are not as used to organize and setting up things for themselves. So then they get in that little funk, and then they have time to work it out, and then next thing you know, they're back in the structure.
Right.
So it goes in peaks and valleys at times. I found that with myself. I used to travel 9 months very hard, and then 4 months of it was a little peak and valley. I'd have some time off and peak and valley, and then get back into the structure. So I lived that as well.
All right. Well, we've come down to the time goes so quickly because I enjoy talking so much and learning and listening. I find myself being inspired by these interviews myself. So I can't speak for the listening audience, but I can only surmise that if they're listening as intently as I am and picking up on the various thoughts, that they're being inspired as well. So, Kevin, I thank you more than you know. I always give the last few minutes to my guests to promote, and we haven't said anything in terms of dollar figures, and that's the only thing we can't say. But in terms of websites, contact, where you're going to be, whenever the book comes out, so forth and so on, you have the opportunity to promote anything you'd like to promote at this point other than dollar figures. So, the last few minutes, the mic is yours, and then we'll close down, and I'll be into the next segment.
Well, I appreciate it. Like I said, we're a new entity, and we're able to really help people make a difference in terms of entrepreneurship and really empowering organizations. So the company PRO2CEO really developed on the premise of reinvention. I tell people all the time, I have a reinvention company, and we're into transforming people and organizations. We focus on consulting, primarily for organizations and people. We do business development, helping people launch companies, and then we do life learning events where they're really experiential. So we have an event called the Sustaining Success Summit that will be coming up later this summer. We also do research, and we really study patterns for success for people, and we actually do research for companies that would like it. And we're also going to be a content company. We have some neat projects coming out in content in terms of transition. So look for that on our website and on the web. And we do believe in social responsibility, giving back and mentoring, and being able to really help people in the space of the transition, either the mental health that comes with making transitions and having people to help people get through that. We really are beginning to go into that space because we think people are always somewhat in a little state of transition, so we try to help them there. I think the biggest thing is that our model really allows for us to help people ultimately become the CEO of your life. We really want to empower people and help change the narrative around change and transition. It doesn't have to be rough. You don't have to be alone. You do have a trusted resources out here who can help prepare you. So we're working not only with professionals, but we're even having colleges reach out to us and ask us to come in. We're having even youth organizations come to us and say, the research says that the earlier you get to people and help them understand that change is constant, it's going to be a part of your life. We're helping create models around that. So we're happy, and we're beginning to really see some things. So for us, we're excited about what PRO2CEO is going to be able to bring to everyone. We think a part of our model is helpful to the stay-at-home mom who's the CEO of the household, or the dad who's a stay-at-home dad, he's the CEO, or that business person like me who was, in the midst of trying to figure out what's next and just needed help resetting. So I got great mentors who were able to help me get, my transition strategy on. On par, and now I'm able to really do that. So I think you can recreate yourself and still not lose who you innately are. And we've been able to do that through this new PRO2CEO model. So if I can be helpful to anyone, our greatest way is to go to PRO2CEO.com and send me an email at info@PRO2CEO.com, or our phone number is on the website, and you can reach someone in our business number. So thank you so much, Mark, for the opportunity. Thank you, my frat brother, as well.
All right now, 06.
I had to throw that in there.
I know that's right, the greatest fraternity in the world. 06.
Absolutely. You better believe it. And really just, I'm excited about the evolution. We're evolving. It's always exciting to see people grow, almost like your children. They grow up, and I feel alive as I've ever been. And the word I would leave with everybody is, it's okay to transition. It's okay to evolve.
Right.
You'll learn a lot about yourself. So thank you so much, Mark, for the opportunity. And you have continued success with your show. And if I could be helpful with your school in any way, empowering your young people, feel free to let me know.
I will. Thank you so much for rising early with me. And again, for those in the audience, it is www.PRO2CEO.com. I encourage you to go there and to stay abreast of what's going on. And again, whenever the book materials drop, we'll have Kevin back on the show and we'll discuss that. But I'm excited. I'm definitely going to be in touch with you in terms of some thoughts that I was talking about earlier of where I think I am heading in terms of at one point in my career, whether it's now, 5 years from now, 10 years from where I look to go, again, following the passion and the strengths. And just listening to you has probably added yet another coal to that fire.
Well, let's figure it out, man. We need great people like you, and you provide us such a great medium and platform to get the word out. So thank you, and I'd love to be a helpful servant to you.
All right. Well, we will certainly be in touch. As you know, first of all, servants of all, we shall transcend all. Success as well.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. All right. Well, all right. Kevin and I are fraternity brothers, and I'm so glad he brought that up. And, we're part of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. A part of that fraternity has been Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., W.E.B. Du Bois, David Dinkins, John Johnson, Edward Brooke. I mean, I can just go, the list goes on and on and on of the notable men who've come through Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I tell folks all the time, I became a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity after I learned that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an Alpha. So I tease folks all the time, all the other Panhellenic, all the rest of the fraternities. I always tease them and say, well, whatever Martin would have been, that's what I've been. So if Martin would have been a part of Omega Psi Phi, I guess I'd have been a Q. If Martin would have been a part of Kappa Alpha Psi, I guess I'd have been a Kappa. If Martin would have been a Sigma, I guess I'd have been a Sigma, because I had studied, and I still study Martin Luther King so much, because he is one that I truly revere, as I said earlier, in terms of us being in the 50th anniversary of that march down there at the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where they were actually fighting and marching for the voting rights for black folks, for African Americans. And I've studied him so much that once I found out that he was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, that was the way for me to go. And I pledged that fraternity now probably 30 years. And it was back in 1980, close to 30 years, 1986. I crossed the burning sands May 4th, 1986. And so we're heading up to my 30th anniversary in that great fraternity. And Kevin is a part of that as well. So I know when we email each other, we're going to have a time. As I said, first of all, servants of all, we shall transcend all. We're going into the good news in song as we are in the Eminem Hour. We extended the reading circle as we've been doing, I think, since January. Since 2015 has rolled in. If you go to the YouTube site to look at the archive shows, most of them are running around close to 90 minutes. You know, we're definitely been doing beyond the 60. We've been doing an hour and a half probably with these, but they have been some wonderful interviews this morning, notwithstanding. This morning, no doubt exceptional as well. So we're going to share this with you, and then we're going to transition over, speaking of transitions, to the good news in song.